then from your side, is most of the things you offer, can it be integrated into existing systems, or does it become, or in some of the systems, and I'm not even speaking specifically to this one, just is it hard to integrate if you have certain types of setups, or is most of Anton Par's sensors and measurement devices that can they be integrated in general?
So we got those two legs for the breweries we stand on. One is a lab instruments, and this would fall under lab, so this is not installed. As
Right.
well as other instruments like the C-Box is a portable instrument that was the gas measurement instrument. So this would fall under a lab, and for the lab instruments, well, with the C-Box it's an exception, but usually for lab instruments you bring the sample to the lab, so therefore the integration is just there's no integration
Right.
required. For the sensors, that's different. Having that said, the integration is, I would say, it's not that hard. So the sensors needs to be put in a line, and of course, to be able to do that, the line has to be provisioned for that. And there's like a standard, an industry standard, a Variant adapter where those click into, and you would have to have this at the right spot. But beside that, it's easy. And then those sensors, so there are two kind of automation level. Automation level one is you add the sensor and you read what the sensor tells you, so you don't have to don't do it manually, but you have a sensor that shows you this the amount of sugar that goes through the line. That's option one. And option two is that you act accordingly with this data. So Justin was talking about inline carbonation. So option one would be you add a CO2 sensor that shows after adding CO2, how much CO2 do I have now in the line? Is it 2.8 what I want to have? Is it 3.0? Oh, I'm too high. So you have to dial down the valve, or is it too low? Then you have to open up the valve for CO2 flow. So this would be like tier one, and then tier two would be to automate it, to have a process where you type in, I want 3% CO2, and then the valve is being opened, the flow happens, and then the system reads from the sensor, and then depending on what the sensor says, it automatically closes or opens the valve. So those would be those levels, and we provide both. We provide the complete solution, so complete automation, or only the sensor, or maybe the client has an automated system, but the sensor broke and they're fed up with their current supplier and they want to switch, then they can use our sensors. And there's quite some compatibility. So to replace one sensor versus another sensor, that is very easy to do.
Yeah, and really it's an equation throughout the whole system of where do we need it, where based on our production levels and that sort of thing, which I'm sure it's very interesting. Anyway, sorry to keep jumping in, but it's kind of my job. Okay, what stage are we at now? What will be the next stage you'll take us to?
So we have fermented beer that has been filtered and that has been carbonated and aged.
Correct. Yeah, we are now in the bright beer tanks and ready to package. And so we've got a keg line, a can line, and a bottle line here. I would say 20% of our volume is in kegs. The 75% would be in cans, and then maybe 5% into bottles. And so it's just kind of coordinating what happens there.
Wow.
Yeah.
75% in cans.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I assume during COVID, bottling and canning was 100%. So there were no kegs because no bars were open.
There was very little draft going out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised actually that you still do bottles. I know a lot of breweries on the east side of Canada that want to decommission their bottling lines, and they
Please
give
keep them. They're
before
so
they're done.
awesome.
Yeah. It's interesting. Actually, we've had an increased demand for bottles. Yeah, we have.
I have to say, for me as a beer drinker, so I prefer bottles. I find the taste is better from bottles. And then I hear, a bottle is more of a deal. You have them in your backpack, you go out in the woods, and then you have those bottles clong, 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 and they can burst. And I get your point. If you go to a hike and you want to have your six-pack with you, a bottle might be not the best choice, I admit. How often do you go on a hike with a six-pack in a year? Refresh my mind. How often does it happen?
I would never hike.
Okay, there you go. 0 times.
And I'm not coordinated enough to really hike sometimes. So.
I think that's true for the vast majority of the beer drinkers in Canada. So I think the appeal, I get it from an operational point of view. From a brewery, it's much easier with cans. The cleaning, all of that is much easier. It's lighter. But from a consumer point of view, I would definitely prefer bottles.
Yeah, but you're seeing it increase, though.
We are doing more bottles this year. We're forecasting more bottles this year than the last 2 years combined.
Yeah.
So it's on a little bit of
drinking for the if you're just going to do pound backs and beer, that it's for the game. that kind of thing, just grab a can, but if you're, wanting to like the experience of having a beer, I think a bottle is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Lars. There's something about having an actual physical bottle in your hand, drinking a
Yeah.
beer.